Step into the world of Founders Dinner. Stories of entrepreneurial wins, losses, and lessons. Where the essence of entrepreneurship is unraveled in its most authentic form. Stas Balanevsky serves as your guide on this journey of discovery and inspiration. In each episode, Stas brings together entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds to share their stories. It's not just about their victories, but more about the resilience and adaptability they've shown in the face of adversity. These narratives are more than just stories. They are lessons in courage, determination, and the relentless pursuit of success. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, dreaming of launching your first venture, or an established business leader seeking new perspectives, Founders Dinner is your invitation to explore the transformative power of entrepreneurship. And now, without further ado, let's welcome the host of Founders Dinner, Stas Balanevsky.
Welcome to the Founders Dinner podcast. I'm your host, Stas Balanevsky, and I have the pleasure of having Wade Swikle as my guest today. How are you, Wade?
I'm doing excellent. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming on. The purpose of this podcast is to help our entrepreneurial brethren. So, as I'm sure you don't learn a single thing from winning. So what I'd like to do is first, I'd like to get a sense of you and your entrepreneurial journey. We'll start there, and then we'll go into a misstep or a mistake that we may have made.
Lots of those.
Talk about the lesson or lessons we've learned, and then talk about how we've applied those lessons to future wins and what the ROI on that tuition has been.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Awesome. I'd love to start with your entrepreneurial journey. Can you give us a sense of who you are, where you've been, where you're headed?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a common debate. Are people born entrepreneurs? Are they molded into entrepreneurs? And I do truly think that there's some innate gene or trait that I was born with that kind of gave me a high likelihood of owning businesses one day. But growing up, I would always be looking for things to do. I'd invite people over for car wash parties, like my friends when I was a kid. And my parents would be like, nobody wants to come over to play and wash cars. And I was like, but it's a business. It's fun. There was little instances like that, selling candy at school, lemonade stands, whatever, stuff when I was a kid. I just always had this fascination with like building things and like trying to figure out ways to make money and try to combine the two. Went to college to play baseball at a small private Division II school. I'm sorry, getting ahead of myself, in North Carolina. And I came home from the summer of my freshman year of college, and it was an expensive school, even with a partial scholarship. And my dad told me that I had to work. And this was like the summer of 2009. And so it was like a little bit of still the recession from the housing crisis. We were hit pretty hard in a beach town called Venice, Florida, where I grew up. And it's also a very seasonal town where people come in the winter, but they tend to go back up north in the summertime. And so just business all around the town was slow. And I applied to maybe 30 places to try to find a job. And I just wasn't really getting any traction with that. I got one call back for a job that lasted like 2 weeks, and then they just didn't need the help. They were too slow. So my dad said, listen, if you're not going to be able to find something, I've got a friend that works at the mall. You can fold clothes all summer, make $8 an hour, and that'll be sufficient for me. And I was like, that sounds terrible. I was applying to fun places like jet ski shops and restaurants and stuff like that. And so I didn't really have a lot of options. And I just threw a Hail Mary out. I started posting ads on Craigslist saying a college athlete looking for any kind of general labor. And I started to get a lot of different types of phone calls, but the majority of them were for loading and unloading U-Haul trucks. And people liked the idea of saving money by hiring a college student, especially somebody who is physically fit, having just been a college athlete, to help with these loading and unloading U-Haul trucks rather than hiring a full service moving company and paying all that extra money when money was tight for a lot of people. So I started to get those calls, and I loved it. I could set my own schedule. I could charge whatever I wanted. I usually got paid in cash. People would buy me lunch. They'd give me things that they couldn't take to their new home that I could keep and then turn around and sell back on Craigslist. I'd go drive around and look for things people were throwing away, like on the curbside, and try to flip those on Craigslist. So I spent that whole summer dealing with a lot of furniture and doing moving, basically. And I ended up transferring to the University of Florida in Gainesville, and I just continued to do that. I worked odd jobs, college student type jobs, but I would always supplement that with whenever I got a call to help people load and unload U-Haul trucks and provide that labor, to the point where I actually tried to start my own little business with that. I filed a local city permit to have a business. I had somebody come out to my apartment complex that I shared with 3 roommates and take pictures of my kitchen, which was like my workspace. And I thought that I was in business. I thought that's all you had to do to start a business. But I didn't know anything about licensing and insurance in the moving industry until I got a call from another local competitor that was like, hey, it's a misdemeanor if you are running a moving company without a license and insurance. I'm going to have to report you for illegally running a moving company, or you can just come work for me and I'll pay you the same thing you're charging your customers. And so, oh, shoot, like I don't want to get in trouble. And if you're going to book all the jobs and I just can go do the easy part, which is basically loading and unloading furniture, and you're going to pay me the same, that sounds like a good deal. So I went and worked for him for a little while, maybe 6 months, until that entrepreneurial bug just kept coming back. And it came time to graduate my undergrad program eventually after a few years of doing this freelance work and working part-time for a company. And I saw this owner making a lot of money. I was charging $15 an hour. He was charging $150 an hour. And there was really nothing special that I saw that he was doing that I couldn't do to get those higher jobs. I did some research. I ended up going into business the right way and getting a license and insurance for moving as a 21-year-old with $600 in a pickup truck. And I enrolled in a master's degree in entrepreneurship program at the University of Florida after I graduated the undergrad. And part of that program was to start and run a business almost as like a thesis statement and get consulting from the teachers and the professors and the other classmates and do all these group projects around whatever your business choice was. So for that first year of business, 21 turned 22, just really was starting a moving company. And a lot of my classmates were trying to develop the next sexy app. Facebook was starting to hit its stride. Uber was a brand new thing. So everybody thought that the internet and the apps and all that stuff was what a startup should be. And I'm sitting here trying to start a traditional moving company. And I think to this day, I'm the only one who's still practicing that business that I started during that program. Where all my other classmates, most of them, I think, went and got jobs in sales or working for other startups. I don't know what they're all up to these days. Maybe some of them have started their own businesses again. But that was really what laid the foundation. And people still liked that idea of hiring college students to help them move. And I was moving a lot of college students, and I would hire mostly college students around me. And at that point in time, my business was called Smarter Moving Solutions. There was a competing company called Two College Brothers on campus. And I competed against the original Two College Brothers for 2 summers before they reached out and they wanted to sell the company and go do some other things. And I didn't know what I was doing buying a company. I probably had no business buying a company, but I loved the brand that they had built. They had been in business a couple years longer than I had been. Same concept, same principle of hiring college students, focusing on moving college students. And so I just made them an offer for what I could afford. And they eventually accepted it. And I now had 2 moving companies on my hands, Smarter Moving Solutions and Two College Brothers. I thought that maybe I would run them side by side and have Smarter Moving Solutions be like our residential and commercial, and Two College Brothers be our college student focused one. But I realized like now we have to have 2 sets of uniforms, 2 different types of trucks, 2 different websites, answer the phone 2 different types of ways. It just didn't make sense. Because they had been around a little longer, had a little more traction, I ended up rebranding as the Two College Brothers brand that I had purchased up in Gainesville. And they had a few different locations that were more like phantom locations, more for an ego play. I think they would hire seasonal students in Tallahassee, Orlando, Miami to run these different branches. And I pretty quickly realized that didn't make any sense financially. Like Gainesville was the only location making any money. The other three, whatever, were just headaches. So I decided to just close everything else down and just focus on Gainesville to really get that dialed in. And when I was ready to expand, I would do it the right way, or at least so I thought. So a couple of years go by and we decided it's time to open another location for real. And we chose Tampa as our market. I had a lot of connections in Tampa, and a lot of people move to Tampa from Gainesville when they graduate, and vice versa. They move from Tampa up to Gainesville to go to school. And so we started to try to bootstrap that Tampa location, just like I had bootstrapped my Gainesville location, and it didn't go well. I struggled for about 3 years trying to get that location off the ground and break through the noise while still running my Gainesville office, draining a lot of profits from Gainesville to try to support the Tampa office. And then something happened in 2018 and it all just started to click together and Tampa just started to explode. I had discovered a couple of resources. There was a new Facebook group with moving company owners to bounce ideas off of each other, a forum. There was a new consultant that had just sold a big company and was now going into like the consulting and the coaching for moving company owners, a resource that never existed before that. And I started my own podcast called the Grow Your Moving Company Podcast, which basically just started as me picking up the phone and calling other moving company owners that seem to be having success and trying to just learn the industry and what made them successful. And the content that I was getting was such gold that I was like, man, we got to record these things, make it into a podcast. Didn't really know what direction I wanted to go with that. I was basically using it as a learning tool for myself, but thought that there must be other people in the same position as me, and it could only open doors. And to this day, it's the longest active moving industry podcast that's out there, and I'm still constantly putting out new episodes, and I've really learned a lot through that. And it's also opened up a lot of other doors to other business opportunities, one of which is Moving Titan Retreats, which started as a mastermind with moving company owners that I'd connected with through those other channels, where we got together in an Airbnb. I think there was like 16 or 18 of us at the very first one, and it's blown up into a full-sized conference for moving company owners. And we just hosted an event a couple weeks ago that had over 250 people there, and that was 5 times bigger than the one before that, which only had 50 people there, and that was bigger than the one before that, which I think the one right before that had 7 people there. And so we've been running these masterminds, now turned to conferences, for about 2 years. And that has in turn spun off a training program called Tighten Up Training, which is a really high production value online training course for moving company owners, movers, salespeople, marketing people that we just launched at this event to try to help other moving company owners. And in the meantime, of course, I've grown my 2 locations, Gainesville and Tampa, Florida, into multi-million-dollar companies. And we actually just sold our Gainesville location as our first franchise almost about a year ago, last May of 2023. And we've gotten into the franchising space with 2 college brothers and sold another franchise in San Antonio, Texas, that just opened earlier this year. And so we're trying to continue to get some momentum with the franchises. So really what I've done is created this whole ecosystem around the moving industry, between the mastermind retreat / conference, the training program, the franchising system, and then just the day-to-day business in Tampa Bay, which I still own and operate on a daily basis. It's trying to put a modern day spin on a business that's been around for over 100 years, but has had a bad reputation and a stigma. We're trying to clean it up a little bit through this whole ecosystem that we're building, and hoping to attract like-minded people to my own organization in the process.
That is so awesome. It's funny. I have a client that is also trying to remove the stigma of another industry. And to hear you say that, it's so cool. And it's amazingly validating to hear the story, because I have always said, you give me a college athlete, I will hire that person in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Because you know what pain is like.
Yeah, you have the discipline that you develop, especially if you play at the college level, but even if you play at a competitive level in high school, or a lot of people are finding competitive sports, CrossFit. There's a lot of different things. Pickleball is blowing up. And it takes a lot of discipline to get to the top of your game and to be at a competitive level. And athletes make great employees, military and veterans. So those are also excellent hires that we always look for.
It's funny. I'm proud to have been one of the investors in implementing EOS for a company called the General's Hot Sauce. And
cool.
Look it up. It's a glass hand grenade. And we make meaningful contributions to military and veteran families by creating a really, really great sauce. And cool. I love those guys. They're as pure can be. And they're like, if you're looking for a hot sauce that's all flash and this and that and the other thing, we are not your sauce.
Love that.
6% peppers in the bottle, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm a big hot sauce guy. I've made my own concoctions in the past, grown my own peppers and made pepper flake seasonings and all kinds of stuff. So that's really cool. That was actually one of the business ideas I had when I was trying to come up with what am I going to do for this master's degree program. And it was basically like craft brewery, hot sauce, and moving were like the three three things. And I was just 21. So like the craft brewing, I didn't even know if that would be possible to do. And I didn't know if there'd be a lot of money in hot sauce. Could have been. I don't know how your venture's going, but moving seemed to be the highest paying immediate return on something I could do.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Yeah, the hot sauce business is good. So
Cool. I'm gonna look that up and order a bottle and try it out myself. I'm a connoisseur of sorts.
fabulous. There are 11 flavors. It's awesome. I'd love for you to try it. Cool. So, all right. So you've got this entrepreneurial journey, right? You're an athlete, you're getting a master's, you're building businesses, you're building locations, you're learning, you're iterating, you're winning, you're losing. What I'd love to talk about is pick a thing that didn't go right, a wrong turn, a stumble on the journey, something, because I'm sure it hasn't been just perfect the whole way. And
Do you want to think from like today? Because I could probably at any pinpoint in time find something for you, or a bigger picture thing from the years past.
I think I'd like something from years past, and here's why. I'd like you to describe the misstep, right? Describe the thing that you thought it was going to go one way, but it went another. Because then I want to unpack the thought pattern and the fact pattern and how you arrived at this not entirely right decision. Then I'd like to talk about what you learned. And I'd like you to then finish with a story of how you've applied that learning to something in the business where now smarter guy understands what's going on. Now, how have you applied that learning and what's been the return on that investment, the return on that tuition, we might say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell anybody who's interested in our franchises that you can basically take 10 to 12 years of failed learning experiences and trial by error and shortcut that into 1 year with our franchise model, because it took me a long time to figure out this moving business. I started my podcast in 2017 or 2018 was when I first started recording. I think I first recorded in 2017. And at that point in time, I didn't know what I was doing. I thought that I had this brilliant concept of hiring college students to service college students when I started off, because I had really only dug deep into that business model in the summertime between school semesters. And there's such a demand for it. And people really liked to hire me as a college student and some of my close friends and my brother, that I thought that was the model. Like, I didn't want to be a traditional moving company. I thought I was going to put this like sexy spin on having these college students come out and help ideally focus on moving other college students. And that was a two-sided problem, because hiring college students turned out to be very, very difficult. They typically weren't looking for full-time work. So you've got a bunch of part-time employees, and they don't treat work like a priority that is going to be their livelihood. They treat it as like a way to make some spending money or some beer money, or their families requiring them to have a job. So that was tough, because we're trying to compete with their class schedules and their social schedules and the spring breaks and the summer breaks and the winter breaks when they wanted to go back home, and the hangovers when they would go out partying the night before, and we'd try to get them to show up at 7 a.m. in the morning. So that was definitely a big lesson that I learned, that, okay, so this isn't sustainable to only hire college students. And I fought that for a long time, mainly because of our name. And that was like kind of a core principle of what made us different from other companies. Because when you find a good college student, they were great, but even the good ones still wanted to party and socialize and do all this stuff. So it was tough to keep a well-staffed team that we were able to invest a lot of training in, when it may only be a summer job for them, or it might just be a part-time thing that they do on the side. So that was definitely a pivot that we had to make to hiring more like professionals that are looking for a career that they can advance in, and they're going to vote to it as their priority. And then the customer base of wanting to just mainly service college students in smaller jobs proved to not really be sustainable, because college students only really move in the summertime. So the rest of the year, we had to find other ways to make money. Mm-hmm. And the smaller jobs they're not very profitable, because you have to stack several small jobs to equal the profit of one big house move or one long distance move. So those two, we kept the name to signify the humble beginnings of the company. But the premise of, I get asked all the time, you guys must be so busy hiring or servicing college students around the university in the summer. So yeah, we do get busy for 4 weeks, but we're really busy hiring residential movers and just trying to overcome that public perception that we are just a bunch of college kids only working for college student moves. That was definitely a challenge. And we've built a reputation and done a lot of things to reach our ideal client or our avatar and really focus our marketing efforts towards somebody who's completely different from college. Maybe they went to college because we like to see a household income of $120,000 or more, or in a home 3 bedrooms and up that somebody owns, or a business that has a lot of employees and a lot of office moving needs. That's now our avatar. That's our ideal client. And we'll still pick up some of those smaller moves, some of those student moves in the summertime, but they're just to fill in the gaps from a lot of the bigger stuff. And now we're doing long distance anywhere in the country. We have a full 11,000 square foot storage warehouse. So we do full service storage. And I think I fought that like stigma of like your grouchy, fat, old mover guy that your parents hired when you were young. I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted to put a fresh spin on it. That was kind of what pushed me away for a long time from focusing truly on that ideal client with the professional workforce. But once we embraced that, I realized that's where the money is to be made. And we just went all in on just angling a lot of our marketing. You mentioned corporate identity towards appealing to that upper middle class individual who doesn't want to move themselves. They've got the means to hire somebody and they've got a lot of stuff that has to get transported from point A to point B. So I'd say that was definitely a major learning experience that took place over the course of the first several years.
That's awesome. And kudos for pivoting off based on data, right? You were like, this is my assumption. I'm going to get a bunch of college kids. We're going to move a bunch of college kids and it's going to be great. And then as the machine spun around a few times, you're like, half these guys are hungover and I'm only busy 6 weeks a year, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and we still continue to make pivots. The interest rates recently have gone up, and the entire real estate market, and coincidentally, or not coincidentally, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but correlation-wise, the moving industry has also been impacted by rising interest rates because less people are buying and selling homes right now, hoping that they're going to go down and prices will become better, at least for financing in the long term. And so we've had to transition some of our efforts on building key relationships more in the communities. During COVID, we would just put our Google listing up and show up on Google when somebody would search for us and send out postcards to newly listed and pending homes, and we'd get a lot of bigger moves. But now we have to look for other lines of work like receiving, interior design work, installations. There's final mile stuff, more commercial based projects, targeting more renters now because there can be large moves from people that are renting that just don't want to buy. And a lot of our marketing was geared towards the MLS and the newly listed and pending homes. So we've had to figure out how to break into luxury apartment complexes more and get a different target audience. The market has shifted so much, even in the last 5 years with technology. We didn't have a CRM for the first probably 6 or 7 years when we started. Now the CRMs are so powerful. I don't know how we ever ran a business without it because there's so much we can do with technology and AI. We've got an AI feature on our website as that started to develop. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Always looking to learn the next cutting edge tactic to stay at the top of our game and to stand out amongst our competition.
And I got to say, your blogging SEO strategy, whoever came up with that's genius. Nicely done because you're popping up at the top of all of the I'm moving to Tallahassee searches.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I work with an expert for the SEO side of things, but I've also had to learn the language and learn what can I do from a grassroots standpoint that reflects on our search engine optimization. And a big thing that I've found is just building those community relationships and becoming a preferred vendor of real estate brokerages or a preferred vendor of cleaning services or other small businesses that they will link back to you because you build that relationship on a personal level versus just trying to get a bunch of black hat listings for backlinks that really now gets penalized by Google. And being able to talk to my SEO developer, our website developer and his team on, hey, we want to build out an online store. We want to implement this AI feature and like really being able to talk to him and figure out how do we want this whole experience to look and still be ranking well in SEO and trying to learn as much about the communities that we're servicing so that we can provide relevant information to people that are searching for something related to moving. One thing that we do is we'll write content for like the best neighborhoods in Tampa, for example, because the chances are if somebody's looking at what the best neighborhoods in Tampa are, they might be looking to move to Tampa, or they might be looking to move to a different neighborhood in Tampa. So we capture them early on in the searching process on keywords that are much less competitive than like Tampa movers. And then we put a pixel on the site so that we can retarget people that might not be moving for 6 months or a year or longer, but we can stay front of mind. So when they're ready to make that decision, they've seen our ads so many times that it's just a no-brainer to call us. Or maybe they Google Tampa movers and then they see our name amongst all the other names that show up. And they're like, oh, I've seen this company multiple times by now, when they click on our listing and submit a lead form. So there's a lot that goes into it. We could do several podcast series on it, but yeah.
It's really amazing because the thing that I'm seeing, so in my coaching practice, one of the things that I really love is to see the coachable and the lifelong learners and I don't know, give it a shot. Maybe it'll work. And I'm really getting that from you, where you're a guy that just goes, listen, I have some preconceived notions. I think it's going to go this way, but if the data says it goes a different way, I'm okay to go the other way. Right? Yeah. You're not married to the strategy. You're married. You seem to be married to the outcome.
Exactly. That's all that really matters at the end of the day. If it's not increasing revenue, or if it's not increasing profits or just quality of life overall, then what's the point? That's why we're all in business.
That's awesome. I remember I was on a launch team for the General's hot sauce, and we were a bunch of 45 to 55-year-old guys that like barbecue, hot sauce, and golf, creating a Facebook audience. Want to take 3 guesses at what audience we created?
I like who to target. For the hot sauce?
So we created the 45 to 55-year-old men that like golf, hot sauce, and barbecue.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Absolute lookalike, because we're in this echo chamber. And we ran the ads and they did okay. And then one day I just needed to refresh the ads and I didn't hit the gender filter. And I put it out to men and women in this age group with these affinities, and women outbought men 3-1.
Wow.
And I wrote a note back to the boys saying, all right, focus group of basically 1. Look what we did. And all of us were marketers. And it was like the cobbler's kid, right? Had no shoes. We're like, I can't believe we just did a thing that we would never have let one of our clients do. Or just put all the same people in a room and consider that to be the right avatar.
Yeah, I think sometimes business owners, and I've been guilty of this too, is we know what we like. And so we also like our own business, of course. And we try to market to people that are like us. And sometimes that's the complete wrong person to do. And that's what I did when I was marketing to college students, when I was a college student. That's all I knew. And then we found out that typically middle-aged women are the ones who make the moving decisions in a household. And I had no idea. So we tried to make our brand very friendly, because a lot of times middle-aged women are going to have this preconceived notion of movers being these rough individuals. And so we're trying to make a brand. We have the purple and the yellow and more softer fonts and colors and cartoons on the truck to just look more family friendly, versus I see movers that just have these big burly muscle bound guys with beards that's great. You're strong and you look like a mover, but you don't look very friendly. And if the female of the household's making that decision, you want to resonate with that ideal person. Whereas the male of the household might be like, yeah, let's get the big buff strong guys with the jacked up trucks and everything else. But that's going to be a turnoff to the one who's really making the majority of those decisions a lot of the time.
That's awesome. And at the end of the day, that's really a masterclass in marketing, that you're a guy that is guided by reality, not guided by what you want. And the other thing that you said that I think is super important for our listeners to understand is that sort of echo chamber of, I'm a college kid, so I'm going to market to college kids, and this is the whole thing. I have a dear friend, I'm 51 years old, and I've been buying wine from him since the day I was legal at 21. So 30 years I've been buying wine from the same guy.
It's a good lifetime value of you as a customer.
Yeah, I drink a lot of wine, so I have a pretty high LTV. But I remember, and when I've had rough times as an entrepreneur, he's given me gigs. He is one of the greatest guys out there. And I remember he has a lovely large wine shop, and all the best wines are at the back. And then behind the counter, he has a lot of your sort of 375s, the little stuff. And I was like, Steve, come on, you got all this great stuff and all this wine. Why wouldn't you put it up front and blah, 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 blah. He goes, because you're going to walk to the back of the store anyway. And the people that want this stuff, they don't want to walk to the back of the store. They want to walk in, get the stuff, and leave. He said, so I'm listening to my customer and I'm making it easy for them to buy. Are you going to buy more or less wine if it's up front? Like,
probably less.
I'm like, probably, yeah, I'm like, probably the same amount. He said, I guarantee you, if I was to move all of this stuff to the back of the store, I'd sell half as much.
I think you see that a lot with grocery stores too, like the staples being around the perimeter, dairy, meat, cheese, whatever, eggs, milk. People a lot of times, and I do this all the time, I go to the store to buy one thing and I end up seeing 6 different things on my way to get the one thing in the back and then end up making a bigger purchase. So it's smart.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I had a tremendous amount of respect for him for saying the voice of the customer is the ultimate thing. What you want and what you believe doesn't matter until you have proof. And the proof of the voice of the customer because they vote with their dollar.
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, that's how, look at that data. Sometimes if you ask a customer, they don't even know what they want. Like they know it when they have it. And when they see it, like the iPhone was a great example. Nobody was demanding companies make this MP3 player cell phone that's a touchscreen. That was something that Steve Jobs decided people are going to need. And now who doesn't have an iPhone? I feel like that's if you can figure out what people want that don't know they want it yet, then that's the real gold right there.
Well, yeah, that's the ultimate trick. Have you seen the movie Ford versus Ferrari?
No, but you're the second person that's recommended that. So I need to watch that.
As an entrepreneur, you do. And it's really cool. Like I'm a car guy, so I love all of this stuff. But one of the coolest lines in the movie, I forget who said it, but he said, listen, if Henry Ford would have asked all of his customers what they wanted, they all would have said a faster horse.
Yeah.
They didn't know they needed the Model T.
Right.
And it's funny, right? I looked at your website and I'm looking at the AI and I'm looking at all of this stuff because I'm in the market right now for a mover. It's like, wow, I don't know if any of the movers in Buffalo have this AI thing because I know it's going to be a whole thing. Someone's going to have to come over. They're going to have to do an estimate. They're going to have a per box price. It's going to be the whole thing. They're going to move it. Then there's going to be an upcharge. Right, potentially, and there's all of this other stuff. But with your AI, if you just sort of go through it and say, okay, here it is, I get a better quote. It's cheaper to quote because you don't have to roll a salesman, right? There's all of this sort of efficiency. I'm like, wow, I wonder what the next moving thing is going to be that I don't know I need yet. But I'm pretty confident you'll be the guy that invents it or finds a way to stick it together.
Yeah, well, thank you. And we still don't really know how well the AI is going to be adopted. So full disclosure, I'm an advisor. I've got a small advisory stake in that company. It's a startup company that's basically using AI for consumers to be able to go around their house and take pictures of what they have, and it automatically tallies up the inventory, works with our CRM system so that it can basically make the whole quoting process to where you don't have to actually talk to somebody and just basically automate the whole thing eventually. There's still some work to be done. So we're beta testing that feature. It's still in the very early stages. It's 6 months old at this point. And we're hoping to get data on what the most effective approach with that AI is, and if it's something that's going to actually end up increasing business and give us a competitive advantage. And so far, the data looks good. We're finding that people that go through that process and click on the AI feature and submit a quote form request are booking at about 20% higher than people that just fill out a static web form and wait for somebody to give them a call. And there could be correlation doesn't always equal causation. There could be other reasons because maybe they're more invested because they're going around taking time out of their day to take pictures, but it's promising. And we're going to know once we have more data and more companies adopt it. And there's also the user learning curve because nobody else has this right now. As like the first adopter of this software, And this startup that's basically I partnered with, we don't like people don't know how to use it. They don't expect to see this AI feature on their moving company owner's website, especially our older demographic, which is like I mentioned, the typically middle age or older person. But we also know that AI it's a buzzword right now. It's all over the news. It's a big technology. And we're hoping that people start to use it just like they started to use the internet to look up moving companies 20 years ago when it used to just be the yellow pages. So we'll see.
Right.
Time will tell. We'll keep an eye on the data, but so far it shows a lot of promise.
That's so cool. That's so awesome. Normally, I ask people to, in their own words, distill down what lessons they've learned and how they're applying them. But the one thing that I'm seeing with you, and I'd love for you to expand upon it, maybe I'm dead wrong, but I just see you as the forever test, measure, adjust guy.
Yeah, test, track, and tweak. That's
There
that's
it is.
the name of the game. Whether it's something like technology or just marketing. We found marketing that works in Tampa that doesn't work in Gainesville, and vice versa. And typically, my rule of thumb when we're trying out different marketing strategies or different media sources is give it 90 days, anywhere from 3 to 6 months, really, to get enough of a sample size to see if it's delivering a return on investment. I try to keep all my marketing as trackable as possible with tracking phone numbers, with custom landing pages or QR codes so that we know how people are finding us. Then we just also just ask people how they heard about us too. And so anytime I try something new on a marketing front, I want to see at least a 7x ROI on what I'm spending for that marketing. So like radio, for example, I just had a hunch that this local radio morning show host on the local 80s station would resonate with our audience. He's been around for a long time, has had a strong following, went off the air for a few years, recently came back on. I used to listen to him when I was a kid. And I was like, you know what? Being on the 80s station, this is probably going to hit our demographic. So let's
Mm-hmm.
give it a try. And radio has never worked for us before, but I decided to go out on a limb with this source. And it's been producing. We've been working with them for 2 years. But we tried that in Gainesville with another a talk radio show host that's also been around forever and saw virtually nothing come out of it. So you just never really know. Every market's a little bit different. You just have to test, track, and tweak.
Test, track, and tweak. I love it, and I'm going to steal it. So I have this book that I have in all of my sessions. And whenever I hear something that's brilliant, I always slide the book to people.
Oh, nice. Are you drinking bourbon over there? I didn't even pour a glass for myself.
There's a bourbon up here. That's
Okay.
from my buddy that is also an EOS implementer. So it's a balance beam where he has I think it's, what is it? Yeah, it's an old Forester 1910. Oh,
Nice.
there's an old Forester 1910 up there. In my bookcase, there is a bottle of Pappy Family Reserve 15.
Ooh, now
A
you're
a
fancy.
dear friend. No, I am not. I'm a Woodford guy. Uh,
Okay. Also good stuff.
I lent my office to a client of mine. They're dear friends, and they came back the next day and handed me this bottle, and they were like, "Thank you so much. You know, it looks like we probably closed the deal that we were looking to close." And it was super kind and super generous. So I'm waiting for them to come for their next EOS session. And we sometimes do a last hour happy hour and we'll rip that thing open. It'll be my first time ever trying it.
Love it. Love it. Well, lucky you. That sounds amazing. If I'm ever up in the Buffalo area, I know who to call.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Would love to host you if I'm ever down in Tampa. I'm sure we'll find a spot to have a little bourbon.
Yeah, I know some good ones. So let me know.
I bet. That's awesome. Well, Wade, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your story with us.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for having me on. And if any of your listeners want to connect with me, I usually put out social media is the best way to do it. My Instagram at Wade Swikle. So it's just at my first and last name, all one word. That's a great way to connect. Follow me and message me if you want to talk more about whether it's franchising or just business in general. I've also got a book coming out later this year called Hometown Titan. And you can pre-order that book at hometowntitanbook.com. And it just tells a lot of the failures and the lessons learned over the last 12 years, starting a moving company from virtually nothing and growing it into a multi-million-dollar franchise. So hope to help some aspiring entrepreneurs and existing entrepreneurs become titans in their own hometown community.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And with that concludes this week's episode of Founders Dinner Podcast. For those looking to connect with Wade, he gave you a couple of details. We'll have everything in the description. And this is Stas Balanevsky signing off. See you all next week.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Founders Dinner, stories of entrepreneurial wins, losses, and lessons. Once again, we've journeyed through the inspiring and challenging world of entrepreneurship with Stas Balanevsky, uncovering stories that illuminate the resilience and adaptability at the heart of success. Each narrative shared today is a testament to the unyielding spirit of our entrepreneurial guests, providing lessons in courage and determination. We hope these stories have not only entertained, but also inspired you. Whether you're taking the first steps in your entrepreneurial journey or are a seasoned leader in the business world, Founders Dinner is more than just a podcast. It's a community of learning, inspiration, and connection. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more insightful episodes and join our vibrant LinkedIn community to continue the conversation, share experiences, and connect with like-minded entrepreneurs. Until next time, keep embracing the entrepreneurial journey. This is Stas Balanevsky, thanking you for being a part of the Founders Dinner family. See you at the next dinner.